Modern men are told that emotional availability is the shortcut to intimacy. Open up quickly. Share everything. Be vulnerable early. Explain how you feel. This advice sounds healthy, mature, even noble. But in real-world dynamics, especially early and mid-stage attraction, this misunderstanding quietly destroys polarity. Female attraction does not grow from emotional exposure alone. It grows from emotional strength. Emotional strength is not silence, suppression, or coldness. It is regulation. It is a man who can feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings. A man who experiences uncertainty without chasing reassurance. A man who can face tension without rushing to resolve it just to feel comfortable again. When a man leaks emotion without containment, it does not read as intimacy. It reads as instability. Many men confuse being emotionally open with being emotionally unfiltered. They talk through every doubt. They seek validation when they feel insecure. They explain themselves when they sense disapproval. They attempt to manage attraction by communicating more, not realizing that attraction is not logical, it is emotional and energetic. The more they talk, the weaker the signal becomes. Female nature is highly attuned to emotional consistency. Not perfection, but steadiness. A man who is grounded sends a subconscious message. I trust myself. I can handle outcomes. That trust is contagious. It creates safety without asking for it. Emotional availability without emotional control does the opposite. It transfers emotional responsibility onto her. And once a woman feels she must stabilize a man emotionally, desire begins to collapse into caretaking. This is where many modern men lose leverage without ever noticing. They believe showing emotion proves authenticity. But attraction is not built on disclosure. It is built on presence. A calm presence in uncertainty. A relaxed presence under pressure. A self-directed presence when things don't go their way. These qualities communicate far more than words ever could. Emotional strength also means not reacting impulsively. When a man becomes upset quickly, defensive, jealous, or overly eager to correct misunderstandings, he reveals that his internal state is dependent on her responses. That dependency kills polarity. A man who can pause, observe, and choose his response shows leadership over himself. That leadership is what sustains attraction long term. This does not mean men should never express emotion. It means expression must come from stability, not need. There is a difference between sharing from fullness and sharing from emptiness. One deepens connection, the other drains it. When a man shares emotions calmly, without expectation of rescue or reassurance, it strengthens bonds. When he shares to relieve anxiety, it weakens them. The harsh reality is that female attraction is not designed to reward emotional collapse. It rewards emotional resilience. This is not cruelty, it is evolutionary wiring. Women feel safest and most drawn to men who can handle life without unraveling. When a man proves he can remain centered regardless of outcome, he becomes magnetic without effort. Modern men are often punished for this truth because it contradicts what they were taught. They were told to lead with vulnerability, not realizing vulnerability without backbone becomes liability. Strength first creates the container. Vulnerability inside that container becomes powerful instead of repulsive. Emotional strength does not mean you feel less. It means you master what you feel. And mastery is what separates attraction from obligation. When you stop trying to be emotionally impressive and start becoming emotionally grounded, everything shifts. And that shift changes how you are seen, felt, and chosen. One of the most brutal truths modern men face is this: the moment you start seeking validation from a woman, you begin to lose her respect. Not because she is cruel, not because she wants to dominate you, but because attraction does not grow where approval-seeking lives. Female nature responds to self-certainty, not self-questioning. Many men unknowingly place women in a position of power by looking to them for emotional confirmation. They ask, indirectly or directly, am I enough? They over-text to maintain connection. They over-explain to avoid misunderstanding. They over-give to secure affection. On the surface, this looks caring. Underneath, it communicates insecurity. And insecurity is not neutral. It actively erodes attraction. When a man needs approval, his behavior changes. He becomes reactive instead of intentional. His decisions revolve around how she might feel rather than what he believes is right. He abandons his boundaries to avoid conflict. He tolerates disrespect to preserve access. Each compromise seems small, but together they send a loud message. I need you more than I trust myself. Female psychology is extremely sensitive to this shift. Respect fades not because the man becomes too nice, but because he becomes internally unstable. A man who needs approval cannot lead, cannot hold tension, and cannot stand firm under pressure. Attraction requires polarity, and polarity requires a grounded center. This is why chasing validation backfires. The more a man tries to prove his worth, the less valuable he appears. Value is not declared, it is demonstrated through independence. When a man knows who he is, he does not negotiate his self-worth through attention. He enjoys connection, but he does not depend on it. That distinction changes everything. Many men are confused by this because they were taught that effort equals love. But effort without boundaries becomes submission. When you give endlessly without standards, you communicate that your time, energy, and presence are abundant and cheap. Female nature does not respond to scarcity manufactured through games, but it does respond to genuine self-respect. Self-respect means you do not chase clarity when uncertainty appears. You allow space. You observe behavior instead of interrogating intentions. You let actions reveal interest instead of demanding reassurance. This does not mean playing hard to get. It means being easy to lose. A man with standards does not threaten to leave. He is simply willing to. That willingness creates respect. It signals that his life has direction beyond her approval. When a woman feels that a man would be fine without her, she feels drawn to earn her place in his world. When she feels he would fall apart without her, she feels burdened, not desired. Approval seeking also kills attraction because it removes mystery. When a man explains everything, reveals every insecurity, and seeks constant affirmation, there is no emotional space left. Desire needs room to breathe. It needs tension, uncertainty, and contrast. Certainty given too early feels safe, but safety without polarity leads to boredom. Female nature is not brutal because it enjoys men failing. It is brutal because it reflects a man's inner state without mercy. If you lack self-trust, she feels it. If you abandon your boundaries, she senses it. If you need her to validate you, she loses attraction instinctively, even if she cannot explain why. The shift happens when a man stops asking to be chosen and starts choosing himself. When his life is full, his mission clear, and his standards intact, approval becomes irrelevant. Connection becomes a bonus, not a requirement. And the moment approval is no longer your goal, respect quietly takes its place. Another hard truth modern men struggle to accept is this: women respond more to how you handle pressure than how you treat them when things are easy. When everything is calm, almost any man looks confident, but female nature is calibrated to observe what happens when tension enters the room, when emotions rise, when boundaries are tested, when uncertainty appears. That is where respect is either built or destroyed. Most men collapse under emotional pressure. When a woman pulls back, becomes distant, or expresses dissatisfaction, the man panics internally. His tone changes, his posture softens, he rushes to fix, explain, apologize, or please. He tries to restore comfort as fast as possible. In doing so, he reveals a critical weakness. He cannot tolerate emotional discomfort. This is where attraction quietly dies. Women are not drawn to men who eliminate tension at all costs. They are drawn to men who can remain calm inside tension. Emotional strength is not loud dominance or aggression. It is stability. It is the ability to stay grounded when emotions fluctuate without becoming defensive, needy, or reactive. When a man cannot hold pressure, the dynamic flips. Instead of being a grounded presence, he becomes emotionally managed by her moods. If she is upset, he is anxious. If she withdraws, he chases. If she questions him, he over-justifies, slowly, unconsciously. She takes the masculine role of emotional control while he slips into a position of seeking reassurance. Female nature does not respect this reversal. Pressure reveals truth. When challenged, a centered man does not argue to win approval. He listens without losing himself. He acknowledges emotions without surrendering his position. He does not rush to fix what is not broken. His calm signals leadership, not control. It tells her, I am steady even when things are uncertain. Modern men are often taught that emotional intelligence means constant validation. But validation without self-respect becomes self-erasure. A man who agrees just to keep peace may avoid conflict in the short term, but he sacrifices polarity in the long term. Peace achieved through submission creates resentment and disinterest. Handling pressure also means allowing silence. Many men fear silence because they interpret it as rejection. When a woman pulls back, they fill the gap with text, explanations, or emotional dumping. But silence is not always danger. Often it is a test. Not a conscious one, but a natural one. Can you remain whole without constant feedback? Can you trust yourself when attention is reduced? A man who can sit in silence without spiraling communicates inner abundance. He shows that his sense of self does not depend on constant external validation. This creates attraction because it restores polarity. She feels his grounded presence even when words disappear. Pressure also appears in boundaries. When a man says no and stands by it calmly, many women will push not maliciously, but instinctively. They want to feel the strength of his frame. If he collapses at the first sign of resistance, she learns that his boundaries are negotiable. If he holds them without anger or explanation, respect deepens. Female nature is not testing men to be cruel. It is responding to strength and weakness at a subconscious level. A man who breaks under pressure feels unsafe to lean into emotionally. A man who remains centered becomes someone she can relax around. This is why emotional mastery matters more than charm, looks, or lines. Anyone can be impressive when circumstances are favorable. Very few can remain grounded when uncertainty, conflict, or emotional waves arise. That groundedness is what separates men who are tolerated from men who are desired. When you stop reacting and start responding, when you stop chasing reassurance and start trusting your own center, pressure no longer threatens you, it reveals you. And what it reveals determines everything. Approval is the silent attraction killer. One of the most brutal truths modern men refuse to confront is this: the moment you start living for a woman's approval, you lose the very thing that could have made her desire you. Female nature does not respond to men who orbit, over-explain, or seek permission to exist. It responds to men who are self-directed, internally validated, and grounded in their own purpose. Most men believe approval creates connection. They think if they say the right thing, agree enough, support every emotion, and never rock the boat, the woman will feel safe and stay. What actually happens is the opposite. The more a man seeks approval, the less weight his presence carries. His words become soft, his decisions become negotiable, his masculinity becomes diluted. Approval-seeking behavior shows up subtly, over-texting, explaining yourself when no explanation is required, changing your opinion mid-sentence because she disagreed, laughing when something bothered you, apologizing for having standards. These are not acts of kindness, they are signals of insecurity, and insecurity is felt instantly, even if never consciously named. Female nature is deeply intuitive. A woman may not articulate why attraction fades, but she feels when a man is not anchored in himself. When your mood depends on her response, when your confidence rises and falls based on her attention, you are handing over your center. And once your center is gone, polarity collapses. A man who is grounded does not need to convince. He does not need to audition. He does not need to prove his worth. He knows who he is, what he wants, and where he is going. That certainty is calming. It allows a woman to relax into her feminine energy rather than feel responsible for guiding, reassuring, or emotionally regulating him. Approval seeking also creates a dangerous dynamic where resentment grows. The man gives and gives, hoping for appreciation. When it does not come in the form he expects, frustration builds. He feels unseen. She feels pressured. What started as being nice turns into emotional debt collection. Attraction cannot survive that tension. True confidence is quiet. It does not announce itself. It shows up in how you walk away from disrespect without drama, how you hold your boundaries without anger, how you remain calm when a woman disagrees or challenges you. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need to be liked. You need to be aligned with yourself. When a man stops chasing approval, something powerful happens. His energy shifts inward. He becomes selective instead of eager. He listens, but he does not bend. He appreciates, but he does not pedestalize. That balance creates polarity. She feels that he wants her, but does not need her to feel whole. This is where respect is born. Not from dominance, not from control, but from self-respect. Female nature responds to men who respect themselves enough to risk disapproval. Men who can say, "This is who I am," and let the outcome be what it is. Modern men are taught to suppress themselves to keep women comfortable. But comfort without polarity leads to boredom. Desire requires tension, direction, and authenticity. When you stop performing and start standing, attraction has space to breathe. The brutal truth is this: women don't fall for the man who pleases them the most. They fall for the man who is most at peace being himself. And that peace cannot be borrowed from anyone else. Emotional control is the core of masculine power. One of the most misunderstood aspects of female nature is how deeply it responds to a man's emotional regulation. Not emotional suppression, not coldness, but control. A man who cannot control his emotions becomes predictable, reactive, and eventually unsafe in a relational sense. A man who can remain centered under pressure becomes rare. Modern men are encouraged to express everything, to vent, to unload, to emotionally outsource their inner chaos to the woman they desire. They believe vulnerability means emotional exposure at all times. What they don't realize is that unfiltered emotional dumping is not vulnerability, it is lack of discipline. And female nature does not feel attraction toward emotional volatility. When a man reacts impulsively, gets jealous easily, argues defensively, explodes in anger, or collapses into insecurity, he communicates one thing very clearly: I am not in control of myself. Once that signal is sent repeatedly, respect erodes. Attraction follows respect, not reassurance. A grounded man experiences emotions just as deeply, but he does not become them. He observes anger without acting on it. He feels jealousy without letting it dictate behavior. He experiences disappointment without spiraling into blame or self-pity. This emotional mastery creates stability, and stability creates polarity. Female nature tests emotional strength, often unconsciously, not to sabotage, but to feel where a man stands. A disagreement, a delayed reply, a boundary challenge. These moments reveal whether a man is anchored or fragile. If he reacts with anxiety, pressure, or emotional punishment, the attraction weakens. If he remains calm, clear, and self-directed, attraction deepens. This is why emotional self-control is not about winning arguments. It's about not needing to win at all. A man who is emotionally sovereign does not need validation in moments of tension. He does not chase clarity when space is needed. He allows silence. He allows discomfort. He trusts himself enough to let things unfold without forcing outcomes. Men who lack emotional control often over-communicate. They explain their feelings repeatedly, hoping to be understood. But attraction is not built through explanation. It is built through presence. A calm presence speaks louder than emotional monologues ever could. Another critical point modern men miss is this: emotional control does not mean emotional distance. It means emotional leadership. You set the emotional tone by how you respond. If you are calm, the space calms. If you are reactive, the chaos multiplies. Women feel safer and more attracted when a man can hold emotional weight without collapsing under it. Emotional discipline also protects a man's self-respect. When you don't react impulsively, you don't say things you later regret. You don't beg, you don't threaten, you don't invest emotionally before trust is earned. You move with intention, not impulse. That self-respect is felt immediately. Many men believe passion comes from emotional intensity. In reality, lasting desire comes from emotional containment. Fire needs a hearth, not an explosion. A man who burns out emotionally cannot sustain attraction. A man who contains his fire becomes magnetic. Female nature is not cruel, it is responsive. It mirrors what is presented. If you bring emotional instability, you will receive distance or control. If you bring emotional strength, you will receive respect and desire. This is why discipline always comes before dominance, and mastery always comes before leadership. You cannot lead another emotionally if you cannot lead yourself. And the man who learns to control his inner world no longer fears the reactions of the outer one. A man must be the source of his own meaning. The final truth modern men struggle to accept is this: female nature does not give a man purpose, direction, or identity. It responds to what already exists. When a man looks to a woman to complete him, motivate him, or validate his worth, he unknowingly hands over his power. Attraction cannot survive in that dynamic because desire only flows toward what stands on its own. Many men enter relationships unconsciously hoping that love will fix their emptiness. They believe a woman's attention will heal their lack of confidence, give them drive, or make life feel meaningful. At first, this dependence can look like devotion. But over time, it reveals itself as neediness, and neediness is the fastest way to dissolve respect. Female nature is deeply attuned to whether a man has an inner axis. Does he move toward something bigger than her? Does his life have structure, discipline, and direction without her involvement? Or does his emotional state rise and fall based on her mood, availability, or approval? These signals are felt instantly, even if never spoken. A man who has his own mission is not emotionally absent. He is emotionally anchored. His life has momentum. His decisions are guided by values, not fear of loss. When challenges arise in the relationship, he does not abandon himself to preserve comfort. He can say no. He can walk away from disrespect. He can hold boundaries without anger because his sense of self is not at stake. Modern men are often told that prioritizing purpose over relationship is selfish. In reality, it is the foundation of healthy polarity. A man who sacrifices his path for a woman eventually resents her. A woman who senses that she has replaced a man's purpose eventually loses attraction. What begins as closeness becomes suffocation. Female nature does not want to be a man's entire world. That is pressure, not romance. What creates desire is being invited into a world that already exists, a world with standards, routines, responsibilities, and forward movement. When a woman sees that she is a complement to your life, not the center of it, respect naturally forms. This is why men who abandon their goals to please women often experience control dynamics. When you have no higher commitment, the relationship becomes your only source of meaning. You tolerate behavior you shouldn't. You negotiate your values. You over-explain. You overstay. And slowly, you train her to see you as malleable. A man rooted in his own purpose does the opposite. He listens, but he does not fold. He cares, but he does not chase. He invests, but he does not overextend. His emotional availability is real, but it is not desperate. That balance creates safety and attraction at the same time. Purpose also disciplines desire. Without direction, desire becomes chaotic. A man chases attention, validation, and short-term pleasure. With purpose, desire becomes selective. He chooses where to place his energy. That selectivity is felt as confidence, not arrogance. Female nature responds strongly to men who are internally ordered. Not perfect, not dominant in words, but aligned. A man who wakes up with intention, trains his body, sharpens his mind, and moves toward long-term goals carries a quiet authority. He does not need to demand respect because his life structure commands it. This is why the most attractive thing a man can say is not a promise, but a direction. Not, I need you, but this is where I'm going. When a woman feels she is walking beside a man who knows his path, desire stabilizes instead of fluctuating. And when a man becomes the source of his own meaning, relationships stop being a battlefield and start becoming a choice.